The interrogation that changed everything, 1,500 words. The prisoner who smiled. The Zithron interrogation chamber was designed to break spirits. The walls pulsed with a low-frequency hum that made most species feel anxious and disoriented. The temperature shifted randomly between freezing and scorching. The gravity fluctuated every few minutes, making it hard to maintain balance. It was a masterpiece of psychological warfare, perfected over 3,000 years, and the human sitting in the center of it was humming a tune. Commander Vralketh of the Zithron Imperial Intelligence watched through the observation window, his scaled face twisted in confusion. The human had been in that chamber for 6 days. 6 days without sleep, without proper food, with constant environmental stress designed to shatter mental resistance. Most species broke within hours. The strongest might last 2 days before their minds started to fracture. But this human, this Sergeant Marcus Webb of the Earth Defense Force, sat calmly in his restraints, occasionally humming, sometimes talking to himself, and showing absolutely no signs of breaking. "This is impossible," Vralketh said to his assistant, a younger Zithron named Kelvas. "Our methods have never failed. Even the legendary Kresh warriors broke within 3 days." Kelvas studied the monitors showing the human's vital signs. His stress hormones are elevated, but not critically. His heart rate is steady. Brain activity shows he's actually in some kind of meditative state. "Commander, I don't think our techniques are working on him." "Everything works eventually," Vralketh insisted. "We just need to apply more pressure." He activated the communication panel. "Sergeant Webb, are you ready to cooperate?" The human looked up at the camera and smiled. It wasn't a forced smile or a defiant one. It was genuine, almost friendly. "Commander Vralketh, right? You know, I've been thinking about your interrogation design. It's really clever. The temperature shifts, the gravity changes, the noise, very creative. But I gotta tell you, you're missing something important." Vralketh leaned forward. Was the human finally starting to break? Was this the beginning of compliance? "And what am I missing, Sergeant?" "You're assuming humans need comfort to function." Marcus shifted in his restraints, making himself more comfortable despite the circumstances. "See, the thing about humans is we evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill us. Temperature swings. We lived through ice ages and heat waves. Gravity changes. We climb mountains and dove into oceans. Stress? Commander, stress is just Tuesday for us. The species had adapted to everything." Vralketh felt a chill run down his spine. He'd studied human history before capturing this soldier. He'd read about Earth's hostile environment. But reading facts and watching them in action were two very different things. "You're bluffing," Vralketh said. "Your body shows signs of fatigue. You're suffering." "Oh, I'm definitely uncomfortable," Marcus admitted cheerfully. "I'd love a hot meal and a proper bed. But uncomfortable isn't the same as broken, Commander. Humans learned a long time ago to function while uncomfortable. It's kind of our specialty." Kelvas pulled up data on his screen. "Commander," I'm reading his file more carefully. "This human served in something called the Arctic Response Unit before joining the Defense Force. According to his records, he once spent 3 weeks in sub-zero temperatures with minimal supplies during a survival training exercise." 3 weeks? Vralketh couldn't hide his disbelief. "That's not training. That's torture." "They call it building character," Marcus said, clearly having heard them through the communication link. "Look, Commander, I get what you're trying to do here. You want information about Earth's defense systems. You want to know our strategies, our weaknesses. And you figured if you made me miserable enough, I'd talk. But here's the thing. I've been more miserable during regular training exercises." Vralketh slammed his hand on the console. "Increase environmental stress by 40%. Maximum sensory distortion." The chamber erupted with chaos. Blinding lights flashed in random patterns. The temperature plummeted, then spiked. The gravity doubled, then halved. Sound waves that should have felt like knives in the brain screamed through speakers. Marcus winced, closed his eyes, and started counting. Out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4. "What is he doing?" Kelvas asked. "Counting," Vralketh said, his voice hollow. He's using a basic mental discipline technique to maintain focus. 27, 28, 29, 30. Marcus opened his eyes and looked directly at the camera. Box breathing, Commander. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold. 4 counts out, 4 counts hold. Basic stress management. They taught us this on day 1 of basic training. You want to break me? You'll need more than uncomfortable rooms and loud noises. The truth about human endurance. Vralketh turned to Kelvas. Bring me everything we know about human military training. I want to understand what we're dealing with. For the next hour, they reviewed files that intelligence had gathered on human military preparation. What they found made Vralketh's blood run cold. Human basic training intentionally broke down recruits physically and mentally, then rebuilt them stronger. They were deprived of sleep as standard practice. They were forced to exercise until their bodies screamed in agony. They were placed in stressful situations designed to overwhelm their minds. They were subjected to tear gas, extreme temperatures, and scenarios that simulated death. And this was considered normal. Standard preparation for every soldier. This species tortures itself for training, Kelvas whispered. They do to their own people what we do to enemies. Not torture, Vralketh corrected, beginning to understand. Conditioning. They're preparing themselves for the worst possible scenarios. They're building resistance to exactly the kind of techniques we're using. He activated the communication panel again. Sergeant Webb, I have a question. Sure, Commander. I'm not going anywhere. Marcus actually laughed at his own joke. Your training deliberately subjects you to extreme discomfort. Why? Marcus's expression became more serious. Because when you're in real combat, when everything is falling apart and people are dying and you're scared out of your mind, you need to be able to function anyway. You need your training to be harder than the actual fight. That's the only way you stay alive. That's the only way you bring your people home. So you train yourselves to resist interrogation? Not just interrogation. Everything. Heat, cold, pain, fear, exhaustion. We train to keep going when every instinct says to quit. We train to make decisions when our brains are foggy with fatigue. We train to stay human when circumstances try to turn us into animals. Vralketh sat down heavily. You're telling me that every human soldier has this level of resistance? Every good one, yeah, some are better than others. But we all go through similar training. It's how we survive. Marcus paused. You know what the funny thing is, Commander? The really funny thing. What? I'm not even special. I'm just a regular sergeant. There are humans who are way tougher than me. People who survived things that would sound like fiction to you. And they'd all be just as unbreakable in this room. The failed strategy. Kelvas brought up another file. Commander, there's something else. The humans unit. His entire unit was captured 3 months ago. According to our records, we've interrogated 12 humans from a squad. And none of them broke. Not one. We got nothing useful from any of them. We assumed they were exceptionally trained special forces. But according to this human, they were just regular infantry. Vralketh felt the weight of a massive strategic error settling on his shoulders. The Zithron Empire had gone to war with Earth based on faulty intelligence. They'd assumed humans were like other species, soft, breakable, predictable. They'd assumed that standard interrogation would reveal Earth secrets. They'd assumed wrong. Sergeant Webb, Vralketh said slowly, if we cannot break you, if our methods are useless, what do you suggest? Marcus looked surprised. You're asking my opinion? I'm trying to understand what I'm dealing with. You've made it clear that torture won't work. So what does work with humans? The sergeant was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. Respect, Commander. You want cooperation? Try treating us like equals instead of animals. You want information? Try asking instead of demanding. Humans respond to respect. We dig in when we're pushed, but we'll work with you if you treat us with dignity. That's it? Just respect. It's not just anything. Respect is huge. See, the reason I can sit here for 6 days and not break is because I know my people respect me. I know they're proud of me for holding out. I know that back home, my commanders trust me to do my job. That belief, that respect, it's like armor. You can't break through it with discomfort. Vralketh looked at the human, really looked at him. Dirty, tired, uncomfortable, but unbowed. Not broken despite days of their best efforts. And more than that, still friendly, still willing to talk, still treating his captors like people worth reasoning with. You're offering to negotiate, Vralketh said, understanding dawning. I'm offering to communicate, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. I won't betray my people. I won't give you strategic information, but I'll talk to you. I'll help you understand humans, so you can make better decisions. Maybe we can find a way to end this war, without more people dying on both sides. The realization. Kelvas spoke up hesitantly. Commander, this would be a trick. It's not, Vralketh said with certainty. Think about it. If he wanted to deceive us, he'd have broken by now and fed us false information. Instead, he's maintained integrity while offering cooperation on his terms. That's not manipulation. That's negotiation. He turned off the environmental stressors in the interrogation chamber. The lights stabilized, the temperature normalized, the gravity settled. Marcus visibly relaxed. Thank you, the sergeant said simply. Sergeant Webb, I'm going to ask you some questions. You may answer or not as you choose, but I'd appreciate honesty. I can do honesty. How long could you have lasted in that chamber? Marcus thought about it. Honestly, maybe another week. Maybe two. Eventually, my body would start shutting down. But mentally, Commander, you have had to kill me. I wouldn't have broken. None of my people would have. Why? What drives such resistance? Because we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human who comes after us. If I break, if I give you information, I'm betraying my entire species. And humans don't do that. We take care of our own. Always have, always will. Vralketh made a decision that would change the course of the war. I'm going to recommend negotiations with Earth. Formal negotiations, government to government. This war is unwinnable if every human soldier has your level of determination. Marcus smiled. That's probably the smartest thing anyone said in this whole conflict. But first, I need to understand something. You said humans respond to respect. Prove it. Help me understand your species well enough to negotiate peace. On one condition, Marcus said, name it. Give me a real meal, let me clean up, and give me some sleep. Then we'll talk. Respect goes both ways, Commander. For the first time in 6 days, Vralketh smiled. Agreed. Part 2. The negotiation that ended a war, 1,500 words. The human solution. 2 weeks later, Commander Vralketh stood before the Zithron High Command, presenting findings that would have seemed impossible before his encounter with Sergeant Marcus Webb. The command chamber was filled with military leaders. Their scale faces skeptical as Vralketh explained why continuing the war with Earth was strategic suicide. The fundamental error, Vralketh explained, is that we assess humans based on their physical capabilities and technological level. We ignored their psychological resilience. A human soldier is not just a body with a weapon. They are a weapon, mentally conditioned to resist exactly the kind of pressure we're capable of applying. High Commander Zekthor, a massive Zithron with battle scars covering his scales, leaned forward. You're telling this council that we cannot defeat a species that has been in space for less than a century? That our 3,000-year military tradition is useless against these newcomers? Not useless, Vralketh corrected carefully. Unsuited. Our military doctrine assumes enemies will behave rationally, will preserve their own lives above mission objectives. Humans don't think that way. They routinely sacrifice themselves for their units. They value mission success over personal survival, and they've trained themselves to function under conditions that would incapacitate our soldiers. Another commander, Velsira, spoke up. Show us evidence. Vralketh activated a holographic display. These are interrogation results from the past year. We've captured 47 human soldiers. 0 successful interrogations. 0 intelligence gained. 0 cooperation under duress. The average time a human lasted under our enhanced interrogation protocols was 8.3 days. The longest was 16 days before we stopped, fearing they would die without revealing anything useful. The chamber fell silent. Moreover, Vralket continued, we've studied their military training protocols. They deliberately subject their own soldiers to sleep deprivation, extreme temperatures, physical exhaustion, and psychological stress. They call it preparation. What we consider torture, they consider basic conditioning. The test subject becomes a teacher. I'd like to demonstrate, Vralket said. With the Council's permission, I brought the human who changed my understanding. Sergeant Marcus Webb, please enter. The doors opened, and Marcus walked in, accompanied by guards. He wasn't in restraints. He wore clean clothes provided by the Zitherons, and while he was clearly a prisoner, he carried himself with dignity. Several commanders reached for weapons instinctively. Stand down, Zekthor ordered. Vralket explained this. Sergeant Webb has agreed to help us understand his species in exchange for improved treatment of human prisoners and consideration of peace negotiations. He spent the past 2 weeks educating me on human psychology, history, and military culture. What I've learned is humbling. Marcus stood calmly, looking around at the assembled commanders. If he was intimidated by being surrounded by aliens in a hostile command center, he didn't show it. Sergeant Webb, Vralket said, please explain to the Council what you told me about the phrase, hold the line. Marcus nodded. It's a military concept that goes back thousands of years on Earth. When your position is being overrun, when you're outnumbered and outgunned, when every logical calculation says you should retreat, you hold the line anyway. You stand your ground because behind you are the people you're protecting. That's the core of human military thinking. We don't fight to win. We fight so others don't have to. That's suicidal, Velsira said bluntly. Sometimes, yeah, Marcus agreed, but it's also effective. See, when you know your soldiers won't break, won't run, won't surrender, you can make strategic decisions other species can't. You can take risks. You can hold positions that should be impossible to hold. And psychologically, it terrifies your enemies. When you're facing someone who literally will not stop, who'll keep coming even after being wounded, who'll fight until they physically can't, that's scary. The historical lesson. Zekthor studied the human carefully. You speak of these things proudly. You don't see the stubbornness as a flaw. It is a flaw, Marcus said simply. It gets people killed who might have survived by retreating. It causes casualties that smarter tactics could avoid. But it's also our greatest strength. Humans didn't become the dominant species on Earth by being the strongest or fastest or smartest. We survive because we don't quit. Ever. Vralket pulled up another display. I want to share something with the Council. This is a historical event from Earth called the Battle of Thermopylae. It occurred approximately 2,500 years ago. The display showed ancient humans in primitive armor facing a massive army. 300 Spartan warriors, Vralket explained, held a strategic pass against an army of hundreds of thousands. They knew they would die. There was no possibility of survival, but they held that position for 3 days, killing thousands of enemies, giving their city-states time to prepare defenses. When they finally fell, their sacrifice inspired their entire civilization to fight harder. They died for nothing, Velsira said. They died for everything, Marcus corrected quietly. They died so their families could live, so their culture could survive. And they did it willingly, knowing the cost. That battle is taught to every human child. We learn about sacrifice before we learn about victory. Zekthor was silent for a long moment. You teach your children to die? We teach our children that some things are worth dying for, Marcus said. Family, freedom, the future. And yes, that makes us dangerous. But it also makes us fiercely protective. We'll die to protect our own, but we'll also die to protect innocent people we've never met. That's why we joined the Galactic Council in the first place. Not to conquer, but to help. The strategic reality. Vralket gestured to another display showing casualty reports. In our 18 months of conflict with Earth, we've won nearly every tactical engagement. We have superior technology, superior numbers, superior position. By every military metric, we're winning. But, Zekthor prompted, but we're not breaking them. Every battle costs us more than it costs them proportionally. They lose 10 soldiers, and Earth sends 20 to replace them, each one just as determined. We lose 10 soldiers, and our morale drops. They're recruiting faster than we can kill them, and their soldiers are becoming more experienced, more effective. In another year, maybe 2, they'll have enough trained veterans to actually threaten our holdings. And that's not even considering their industrial capacity, once fully mobilized. A younger commander named Krelva spoke up. So we hit Earth directly. Destroy their homeworld. Eliminate the source. Marcus's expression hardened. Try it. See what happens when you really make humans angry. Right now, we're fighting a defensive war. We're protecting our territory and our allies. You attack Earth, you'll see what humans are like when we're out for revenge. And Commander, I promise you don't want that. Is that a threat? Krelvos demanded. It's a warning, Marcus said calmly, based on history. See, humans have this saying, never wound what you cannot kill. If you attack Earth and fail to destroy us completely, you'll create an enemy that will never stop coming for you. Not in our lifetime, not in our children's lifetime, not in 1,000 years. We don't forget, we don't forgive, and we absolutely will not stop. The uncomfortable truth. Vralketh pulled up a final display. This is a human historical event called the World Wars. 2 massive conflicts on their home planet, occurring within 30 years of each other. Total deaths. Over 100 million humans. The wars were so devastating. They used weapons that could destroy entire cities in single explosions. The conflicts threatened to make their planet uninhabitable. And yet they survived, Zekthor said, beginning to understand. Not just survived, Vralketh corrected. They thrived. Within 50 years of their most destructive wars, they reached their moon. Within a century, they had colonies throughout their solar system. They took the technologies they developed for killing each other and used them to reach the stars. That's what we're facing. A species that learns from destruction, that adapts to catastrophe, that grows stronger through adversity. Marcus added quietly, we're good at war because we've had a lot of practice, but we're also tired of it. We don't want to fight you. We'd much rather be exploring, building, creating. But if you force us to choose between peace with honor and survival at any cost, we'll choose survival. Every time. The command chamber was silent for a long moment. Finally, High Commander Zekthor spoke. Vralketh, you said Sergeant Webb agreed to help us in exchange for peace negotiations. What specifically did he ask for? 3 things, Vralketh said. First, immediate improvement in conditions for all human prisoners. Second, the opening of formal peace negotiations between our governments. Third, he paused, complete transparency about why we went to war in the first place. That's classified, Velsira began. No more secrets, Marcus interrupted. If we're going to have peace, it has to be built on truth. Why did you attack our colonies? What started this? Zekthor looked at the human for a long moment, then made a decision that would echo through history. A mistake. A tragic, stupid mistake. Our scouts misidentified a human mining operation as a military installation. We attacked first, fearing you were preparing to invade our space. By the time we realized the error, both sides had casualties. Pride prevented us from admitting fault. So we escalated, trying to win quickly before the truth came out. Marcus closed his eyes. Dozens of people died because of misunderstanding. Yes. And then hundreds more because you were too proud to say you were wrong. Yes. The human was quiet for a long moment. When he opened his eyes, they were bright with unshed tears. High Commander, I hate everything about this war. I hate that people I knew are dead. I hate that I've had to kill Zithrons who were just following orders. I hate that we're standing here talking about peace when we should have been talking about it 18 months ago. But, Zekthor prompted, but I believe you. I believe you made a mistake. I believe you want to end this. Marcus straightened. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to recommend to my government that they accept peace negotiations. I'm going to testify that the Zithron High Command is negotiating in good faith. And I'm going to suggest that we work together to make sure this kind of mistake never happens again between our species. The seeds of peace. Velsira looked stunned. After everything we've done to you, you'd help us? I'm not helping you, Marcus corrected. I'm helping the people on both sides who'll die if this war continues. I'm helping the families who want their soldiers to come home. I'm helping build a future where humans and Zitherons work together instead of killing each other. Krelva spoke up skeptically. And you believe other humans will accept this? After we've killed their people? Some will. Some won't. That's how humans work. We argue, we debate, we disagree. But most of us will see the sense in peace over endless war. And once they understand it was a mistake, not malice, that started this, yeah, I think most humans will be willing to move forward. Vralketh added, that's another thing I learned about humans, High Commander. They're remarkably forgiving once they understand motivations. They have a concept called restorative justice, the idea that understanding and repair are more important than punishment and revenge. Zekthor stood, a gesture of great significance in Zitheron culture. Sergeant Marcus Webb of Earth, I formally apologize for the suffering my people have caused yours. The Zitheron Empire was wrong to continue this conflict. We were wrong to refuse peace. And we were wrong to treat you and your fellow prisoners as we did. Marcus stood as well, understanding the importance of the moment. High Commander Zekthor, on behalf of myself and my unit, I accept your apology. I can't speak for all humans, but I can speak for the people I serve with. We want peace. We want to go home. And we want to build something better with your people. Then let's begin, Zekthor said. Commander Vralketh, you will serve as our primary negotiator with Earth. Sergeant Webb, if you're willing, we'd like you to serve as an advisor during negotiations. Your insight into human thinking will be invaluable. Marcus nodded. I'm willing, on one condition. Name it. My people come home. All 47 prisoners, properly treated and returned to Earth as a gesture of good faith before formal negotiations begin. Zekthor didn't hesitate. Agreed. The human who changed everything. For months later, Marcus stood in the Earth Defense Force headquarters, facing a panel of generals and civilian leaders. He'd just finished a 6-hour testimony about his captivity, the negotiations, and the proposed peace treaty. General Sarah Martinez, a tough woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, studied him carefully. Sergeant Webb, you're recommending we accept peace with a species that killed 300 of our people, captured and tortured dozens more, and only wants peace now because they realize they can't break us? Yes, ma'am. Why? Why not push our advantage? Our intelligence says we could win this war in another year. Marcus took a breath. Because winning isn't the same as peace, ma'am. We could win. We could push them back, take their territory, force total surrender. And then what? We'd have an enemy who resents us, who will wait for any opportunity to strike back. Or we could have a partner. Someone who respects us because they understand us. Someone who will work with us instead of against us. Another general, Thomas Chun, spoke up. You spent weeks being tortured by these people. How can you forgive that? I didn't say I forgave them, sir. I said I understood them. They made mistakes. They were working from fear and ignorance. When they understood who we really were, they changed. That's all we can ask of anyone. Martinez leaned back in her chair. You know what I think, Sergeant Webb? No, ma'am. I think you're either incredibly wise or incredibly naive. I haven't decided which yet. Marcus smiled slightly. Maybe both, ma'am. That's pretty human, too. The room was silent for a moment. Then Martinez laughed. Damn right it is. Okay, Sergeant. We'll recommend the treaty to the Civilian Council. But this better work. Because if it doesn't, we're all going to look like fools. It'll work, ma'am. I believe in it. Why? What makes you so sure? Marcus thought about Commander Vralketh, who becomes something like a friend during the negotiations. He thought about the Zitheron soldiers he'd talked with, who were just people doing their jobs, same as him. He thought about all the humans and Zitherons who wouldn't die if peace held. Because both sides wanted to work, ma'am. That's enough. It has to be enough. Epilogue. 5 years later, the memorial stood at the border between Earth and Zithron space. It was a collaborative project, designed by artists from both species. One side showed human soldiers. The other showed Zithron warriors. In the center, where the two sides met, the figures reached toward each other. Marcus stood beside Vralketh, both of them in civilian clothes now. Neither was military anymore. Marcus had retired to teach negotiation at the Defense Force Academy. Vralketh ran a cultural exchange program between their species. Do you ever regret it? Vralketh asked, choosing peace over victory? Marcus shook his head. Not once. This is better than any victory could have been. They stood in comfortable silence, watching as a group of human and Zithron children played together nearby, the next generation that would never know war between their species. You taught me something important, Vralketh said. About humans, about resilience. But the most important lesson was simpler. What's that? That strength isn't just about enduring hardship. It's about choosing mercy when you have the power to destroy. That's the real measure of humanity. Marcus smiled. We all learned that lesson together, Commander. That's what makes it worth remembering. As the twin suns set over the memorial, casting long shadows that blended human and Zithron forms together, Marcus thought about how far they come. From enemies to partners. From war to peace. From misunderstanding to friendship. It hadn't been easy. There were still tensions, still people on both sides who resented the peace. But it was working. Day by day, year by year, two species were learning to live together. And maybe, Marcus thought, that was the most human thing of all. Not the fighting or the enduring or the refusing to break, but the choice to build something better when the fighting was done. The choice to turn enemies into friends. The choice to believe that understanding was stronger than hatred. That was the real human spirit. Not unbreakable, but unbowed. Not fearless, but brave anyway. Not perfect, but always trying to be better. And in the end, maybe that was enough.